Hey guys, I'm out here today doing a little bit of crop scouting. Mostly I'm looking at the corn. I'm standing in a fairly high yielding field of ours. We're just a couple miles from home. If you look off in the distance there, you can actually see our farm. So this is pretty close to the farm. It's easy to watch. It's a good field other than a few low areas in through here that could use a little bit more drainage. And this is actually where I planted those test strips earlier this spring. I planted all the same variety in through here. This is a 97-day channel hybrid. It's a high yielding hybrid for our area. It's a good, strong, solid hybrid that we've planted for several years, so we know that this is a good corn. I'm looking across, making sure everything looks like it's standing well, making sure the corn looks fairly even. It's got good color. Trying to look and see if I can tell if it's missing any nutrients or anything like that. Crop Protection Services out of Benson, Minnesota actually came up and they sprayed 6 different tests in through here where I'm standing. So there's some fungicide, some micronutrient, and some growth stimulator tests going on through here. I've got a product rep from CPS coming up here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk through here, kind of take a look at some of the different products and see if we can see any differences in those plants as far as how they're growing compared to the plants next to them, and see if we can tell if those products are making a difference on the plants right now. And then the really fun part is gonna be this fall during harvest when we come back to combine this stuff. We're gonna be able to tell whether or not that translated into a real actual yield difference. It's a bit difficult to see out here because of the sun and the glare that we're getting, but you can see there the 6 different products that we planted in the 6 different colors. Down here in the lower right corner, all of those products are labeled. If I push them, they'll pop up at the bottom and tell me exactly what it is. So this is a good way on this climate field view to be able to bring it out here, walk around in the actual field, know exactly where we're standing and what we're looking at. So this is just one thing that I really like climate field view for. Being able to come out here with this and scout these fields and know exactly what I'm looking at in the palm of my hand is really, really handy. Well, just looking real quick here, I wanted to point out to you guys, we recently had a little over 4 inches of rain this weekend, and it came down hard. It came down all in just a few hours. And if you look here, you can see where dirt has splashed up during the rain and gotten inside of these plants. And what concerns me about that is that the plant can actually get a disease. It can get a few diseases, I believe, but the main one we worry about around here is called Gossis wilt. It'll show up later on in the summer when the corn gets a lot taller, and it'll take the top end off of the yield on this field, if it gets that. I'm not saying it's going to, but it's definitely something that concerns me looking across here and seeing all of the dirt down inside these plants. Okay, I'm out here with Randy Anderson with LoveLand Products. We're gonna take a look at some of this corn and look at some of these different products and see what we can see in the plants. Randy, why don't you go ahead and tell us kind of what you're looking at today and what we're hoping to see.
Well, I came up out of the middle of Iowa and got a chance to walk this field with Zach. And when we look at crops and we sit here and look, this is where I spend most of my time, is looking at crops. And when we're looking at what it takes to get yield, what we're after, it really boils down to 2 things. One of those 2 things is the below ground, the root mass. This is the hunter and gatherer all year long of nutrients, the building blocks of yields, also moisture. So that below ground is immensely important. The above ground also, what we look at across this field, the green. This is our solar panel. This is what powers this factory and puts all of these things into what we're gonna harvest. So the larger, more fibrous our root system is, the better hunter-gatherer, the better it can explore, that it can get into contact with more nutrients, can absorb more moisture. The above ground, the deeper, darker green the leaf, the higher its rate of energy that it can produce. So we start looking at things even on color. The deeper, darker green it is, the higher the chlorophyll levels, the better that solar panel is for producing energy for this plant to fulfill its functions. Also, canopy. The sooner we can reach a full canopy, we can capture more of the sun's power and convert it to energy. So these are things that are really important. A lot of the time I spend working with LoveLand Products, we're looking at products that contribute to larger root masses or deeper, darker green leaves, or also protecting what we've got, insect, weeds, disease. So we look at all of these things as a total picture and anything we can do to improve.
So right now we're standing kind of on the line where everything behind you is untreated with anything. And kind of where Troy and I are standing over here, for these 24 rows or this 60 feet here, it's been treated with a product called Radiate. Can you tell us what you're looking for with that product, and then we'll dig some plants up and see what we see?
Radiate is a hormone-based product. We're not necessarily feeding nutrition in. We want to do it in our first post-pass. What it does is increase auxin production. It's below ground root growth, fine root hairs, larger root masses. What we're after is a better hunter-gatherer, and we're doing that through the use of this indubiteric acid.
Let's dig a couple plants up and see what we can see.
Nice roots for a young corn plant. On the corn plant, what we're looking at on a few things. I'm a plant growth and development guy. One of the most important things, and I mentioned it to Zach when we first got here, was checking depth. His depth is near perfect. He's got a mesocotyle somewhere around 1.25 inches long. Coleoptile was 3/4 of an inch or so, pushed up to sunlight, stopped extending. At the base of that is where the nodal roots come out. These nodal roots are going to be responsible for most of that plant's life. Feeding it, getting it moisture, things like that, beyond just the stabilizing from the radical and the seminal roots that came out early. So things are setting up perfectly. We got a rounded leaf tip here with a collar. So we got V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. This is the 6th collar just coming out. We just set the maximum girth our ear is going to have throughout its season.
Do you think that 4-inch rain hurt that max girth at all? Especially with that soil down inside the plant?
You know, we did look at that when we first got to the field. If you can take a look across, I don't know how well that shows. First thing you noticed when you walked into the field was some yellow areas starting to push out with the leaves. You can see a little bit of yellowing in here. Chlorophyll levels are a little low. Water sat in the whirl for probably up to a day.
Inside that plant.
Yes, and we probably had some pretty good splashing and winds because as you can see, we also have a little bit of dirt in here.
Yep.
You know, that's just nature. We lost a little bit of our solar panel for a while. This will grow out and through. Isn't going to be much of a problem. When we look at what the plot was to do here with the Radiate and the testing, the more fibrous root systems. These are things people can look up online too and see what they do in labs and other shots, but it is absolutely a beautiful product for setting up yield. Larger root mass, and the earlier it's applied the better. Small corn first pass, small beans first pass. That's where that product belongs. Even more recent label improvements, you'll see Radiate go in furrow on corn and with starter fertilizers. The sooner we can impact the root mass, the better off we are because we build from there.
Now that one over here, that's an untreated plant there.
Looking at the root masses, when we start looking, this was the treated here, and we look at not only length but also the purpose of Radiate's fine root hairs, and they build on from there. This is the untreated, and you start looking for differences both in root mass and height of plant. Height of plant, these plants are growing. This was treated a couple of weeks ago?
Yep, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So you start looking at height difference. The nice thing about starting and building things things first. First thing, root mass. Hormones are produced down here that control the cytokinins above ground growth. So they go off of each other. We build this first, then this. And that's kind of how it works. And you can see the differences in fields. And it does not take long. Radiate works within a 6-day period. It is fast.
Okay. So the area we've come over to now has been treated with what's called Black Label Zinc. Randy, you want to talk a little bit about that and just tell us what we're looking at here and what we're looking for out of the plants?
Black Label Zinc is a starter fertilizer. Majority of the reason we use these starter fertilizers, cool wet soils, very little mineralization going on, very slow to release. We look at things like nitrogen, but phosphorus is so important as an energy compound. Plants can use a little bit more than they would get normally in a cold soil. So we put a little bit in there. Now with the Black Label Zinc, we've got a product that's not just nitrogen, not just phosphorus, it also has zinc in there. Zinc is a catalyst to plant growth. Zinc is root production. Zinc is auxin in plants, and we get a better mining plant. But the other thing that's different about Black Label Zinc, we have the N we have the phosphorus, we have the zinc, but we also have humic acid in there. And a lot of work being done with humic acids as far as its ability to help plants mine, hold, release products, make them more available within a plant. So that's why that starter was used here.
Just to help make the nutrients more available to the plant sooner.
Yes, yes, a lot of work being done with the organic acids. This is a humic acid product. Looks promising.
So when you look at these plants here that we're standing in, what do you notice, whether it has to do with the zinc or not? What are you looking at, and what do you see when you look at these plants?
We would look at these plants from the time they emerge with a starter fertilizer, outgrowing what doesn't have it. And then beyond that, the zinc, especially in furrow, zinc has issues getting tied to soil very tightly, very unavailable to plants going out, their root masses hunting for them, and coming into contact. Zinc doesn't move very dang much. So if we can put a concentrated band in furrow with our starter fertilizer, we can increase those rates, increasing root masses, having a healthier plant all the way around. Got some deer going through.
There's a lot of deer in this field, especially back in those trees. This area here was treated with NutriSync, you said.
Correct. Yep.
And there's 3 different products of that. What can you tell us about what the NutriSync is doing and what we're looking at here?
NutriSync is kind of a family or a line of products that uses something called inositol, which is very beneficial as far as getting the nutrients we're applying foliar to try to foliar feed these plants. Step 1 is into the plant, getting it in through the leaf and into the plant. Step 2 is getting that nutrient to move to the sinker where it's going to be used, move mobility throughout the plant. And also for that plant being able to assimilate and move these things that are not even part of the product into the growing points of the plants and make them better. There's a long line of products within that NutriSync group that uses this inositol over mannitols and other things that have been on the market a lot longer. Inositol is much more efficient. When you look at it, you've got NutriSync Complete in this field, I believe. You've got NutriSync MicroPack, NutriSync M. The M is for monocots. That is a boron manganese zinc mix. Very important to corn. Through tissue testing, you start figuring out a lot of the nutrients that are lacking, and they put that product mix together. There are also others, NutriSync Boron, NutriSync Sulfur, NutriSync Copper. They've got a wide array, so if a person's tissue testing, you've got individual products you can use to take care of speed bumps towards yield, things that you are lacking, and you can never out yield your weakest link. But you've also got some that are mixes that have multiple nutrients in it to lift up a good field to be even better.
So the zinc that's applied here, the theory is to get that zinc within the plant, get the plant healthier, so that once again it just has better uptake of the nutrients to kind of unlock itself, I guess you could say,
yes,
to be able to uptake what the plant needs.
Absolutely. And a lot of the nutrients we work with are doing functions either below ground or above ground. A lot of times when we foliar feed, we're foliar feeding nutrients such as manganese, iron, copper, things that are leading to deeper, darker green leaves, a more efficient solar panel. One of them's a curative, the other 2 are preventatives by general categories. 2 then also are part of the plant health side.
Okay, now Randy's going to tell us about Slaton.
Well, I'm going to tell you about a new product that Syngenta came out with. It's one of the longest lasting fungicides that we can use in corn. That is a 3-active fungicide. It's got a curative product, and it's got 2 of what you would consider more the preventatives, but also bring the plant health side into play. Looking at maintaining our solar panel deep dark green and not letting disease get the best of us, but also a healthier plant, a more sturdy stalk, a plant that's better able to produce yield but also withstand weather conditions. Bigger, fuller ears. And I believe this is the part of the trial that they have the TrivaPro in.
So where we were looking over there to the north of here, we were looking at a lot of products that help stimulate growth and help nutrient uptake. Versus here, I guess you could say we're looking at more of kind of a protection product.
Yes, sir. we're trying to protect what we're establishing early on. What's nice about a lot of these products, timing is so important. Getting the right timing, listening to the reps, getting the labels, because a product that works great in the case of a soybean at R3, when we sit here and look at the beginning of pod and a fungicide, they may not be as effective if done in a late vegetative or R1 stage, the early reproductive, when we got flowers, as they are R3. These companies know the right timing, and TrivaPro appears to be a very good new product hitting the market, protecting the plant not only from disease, but also from the environment itself.
Is this a product that can be used on soybeans as well as corn?
I believe it's labels corn, soybeans, and wheat. Not that I come from wheat country, but I think that's what it covers. You'd want to look this one up. I'm not your Syngenta rep. You'd want to talk to one of those, but it is in the plot today.
So what kind of diseases or different types of things are we looking at in this specific area that would be common as far as what we're trying to protect this crop from here in west central Minnesota?
Well, I'm about 4.5 hours away from my home, but I would imagine you're probably looking at things like northern corn leaf blight, gray leaf spot. What else would you have here? Some of the eye spots, other things. You know, Goss's wilt, different breed of cat. That's a bacterial, so we're not going to get effectiveness in that. That's something else to look at for another day.
Sure.
But there are different leaf diseases that do come up. Also rust, blowing up. That doesn't overwinter here, but those spores blow up and take our corn. We lose solar panel late in the season when we really don't want to lose energy. One of the things I was going to look at here as long as we were out in the field, beyond planting depth and other things, and I didn't bring my knife with me, but when we're counting leaf collars, stuff like that, we got a V1. He's got the rounded leaf tip. He was the first leaf. He's got a collar V2, V3, V4, V5. His sixth collar's just coming. When he hit 3 leaf collars, he set 8 ear signatures. That was his potential ears. The next couple of weeks, leaf 4, 5 comes out. Shortly thereafter, ear girth is determined. When we start looking back within these plants and what we can see early, I'm gonna need the knife. What we can see early, now if I can just keep from cutting myself on camera, you can go back into these plants, if I don't fumble him up, even at this early stage, you can pull out the tassel.
Well, that was definitely interesting. Thanks to Randy and Troy for coming out here. It's kind of fun to hear from guys that only work with the plants. They're not just farmers, but they really work with the plants to look at them specifically and see tiny differences in what affects things within those plants and how they grow. One of the things I thought was really interesting was how I was talking about the soil within the plants before, and Randy pointed out how you can actually kind of see where there was water sitting inside of these plants. He figured for about 24 hours before it got out of there. Everything down inside here, the plants are so wet, they're pretty hard to take apart very carefully. But one thing that was pretty interesting is how he had said the photosynthesis was disrupted by the water sitting within those plants, and so the chlorophyll, the color is off here. You can see the ends of these leaves are a nice dark green, and as you get down towards the center, they lighten up a lot. And that's definitely something that's because of that big rain we had. Looks like we got more rain coming in the distance. The sun was shining just a few minutes ago, but maybe a little bit of light rain out in the distance. But anyway, that was fun. It's always interesting working with those guys, so thanks to them for coming out here. I suppose I'll go home and have a beer now. Thanks for watching, guys.